Hello, officers. I'm here to talk to you today about Miranda rights. What are they? How a suspect can properly invoke them, and what to do if they are invoked. Now, first, let's talk about the basic holding of Miranda. So, Miranda sets up a warning waiver protocol. So, you have to tell a suspect that they have the right to remain silent, that anything the suspect says can and will be used against them in the court of law, that they have the right to an attorney to be present during questioning, and if the suspect can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed to them at no cost. You don't need to recite these perfectly, but you do have to recite them close enough that the suspect understands his rights. I would just read off your Miranda card until you know them by heart. Now, as far as a waiver, suspects can waive these rights. They often do, as you know. Once an officer has given a full set of warnings, the suspect may waive their right to silence and the right to counsel. If these waivers are obtained in writing and signed by the suspect, that would be best practice. Now, once they have invoked one of the Miranda rights, and the rights at issue here are the right to silence and the right to counsel, we have to honor that invocation. But it's important to note first how invocation occurs. So invocation may occur at any time, even if the suspect has already previously signed a waiver of their Miranda rights. So if they sign it at the beginning of the interrogation and then in the middle they decide to invoke, for instance, their right to counsel, that would be valid even though they've already signed the waiver. Now, any invocation must be clear and unambiguous. This means that if you hear a suspect say something like, "I might need my lawyer here for this," or "Do you think I should not discuss this with you?" that is not a clear and unambiguous invocation, and questioning may continue. They must state in no uncertain terms that they are invoking a right under Miranda. Now, for the right to silence, this would sound something like, "I don't want to talk to you about this anymore," or "I hereby invoke my right to silence," even more direct. Now, for the right to counsel, it's a little bit more nuanced, because this would have to include first language which specifically references an attorney, like lawyer, counsel, or attorney, and language which makes it clear that they want the attorney there for assistance during questioning. So just even "I want my lawyer" is not enough to invoke the right to counsel. Phrases which do suffice would be, "I refuse to talk to you without my attorney present," or "I want my lawyer here before I answer any questions." Now, what happens when they invoke the right properly? There are different effects when a suspect invokes their right to counsel versus their right to silence. The short version is the right to counsel will be more restrictive upon the police as compared to the right to silence. So let's talk about the right to silence first. Once invocation occurs, officers must, quote, "scrupulously honor the suspect's right to silence." This means that questioning must stop immediately. Officers may not badger the suspect regarding the invocation of the right to silence, but they can initiate contact again with the suspect under some circumstances. So here's how that would work. First, officers cannot bother the suspect again for a significant period of time, which the court has indicated 2 hours is enough for that. So they must wait at least 2 hours after the invocation and the ceasing of questioning. They must then give new warnings and obtain a new Miranda waiver. And if they initiate the contact, then they may only ask about a different crime. They may not continue to interrogate the suspect regarding the crime that was invoked earlier. Now, an exception to that exists if the defendant is the one who initiates the contact. If the suspect reinitiates contact with the police, indicating a willingness to talk about the same crime after initially invoking the right to silence, a fresh set of warnings may be given and interrogation can continue. Now, let's talk about the right to counsel. Again, it's more restrictive. Once a suspect has requested an attorney to be present during questioning, police may not conduct an interrogation without counsel present. This protection prohibits any police officer from interrogation of a person who has invoked the right to counsel, and they may not discuss any crime. So even if the suspect invokes the right to counsel when being interrogated by this police department, law enforcement officers everywhere could not talk to the suspect in the absence of counsel if the suspect invokes the right. Now, once a suspect has properly invoked the right to counsel, law enforcement may not talk to the suspect without the attorney sitting in the chair next to the suspect. It is not enough to just let them consult with the attorney or to occasionally invite the attorney for questioning. They must always be in the room in the chair next to them. And this protection will last the entire time the suspect is in custody plus 2 weeks following release. Now, there is still an exception if the suspect reinitiates the contact and indicates a willingness to talk about the case, but it must be that the suspect initiates that and it's about the case. Asking how the Braves game went does not open the door for a suspect to be questioned without counsel present. So now let's do a little bit of a hypothetical, just to get this all clear. So a neighborhood has a series of burglaries. Officer Holcomb then sees suspect Quentin on the street one day wearing a Rolex watch of the exact type taken during the last one. So Officer Holcomb arrests suspect Quentin and brings him to the station for questioning. Prior to this questioning, Officer Holcomb reads suspect Quentin the required Miranda warnings, and then suspect Quentin signs a valid waiver. After just 3 questions regarding the burglary, suspect Quentin changes his mind and says, "I don't want to talk to you about this anymore." Officer Holcomb then ceases questioning immediately and puts suspect Quentin in a holding cell. After several hours, another officer realizes that suspect Quentin is actually in custody and wants to interrogate him about a recent gas station robbery. Suspect Quentin, during this interrogation, admits that he was involved in the gas station robbery. We're just wondering if that was okay with Miranda. And it was not, because the officer would have needed to not only wait those 3 hours, not only ask about a different crime, he would have needed to issue new warnings and obtain a new Miranda waiver. Here, he did not do that, so all the things that he said would be invalid.